Good morning, everybody. How are we doing today? Let's jump into the news first because it is Saturday morning. Who doesn't love a good Saturday morning news day? How's everyone doing? I hear in Ohio, the new OP is starting with our very own Lightseekers Cecilia. I cannot wait to see what people bring to her OP events. Wrangler, good morning. You are always here bright and early with your cup of coffee. Rocket Czar, how are we doing, everybody? So, today I will be streaming until about noon. Me and my girlfriend have a party to go to this afternoon, so 4 hours today. But I wanted to first talk about all the news that we got this week because I haven't played Lightseekers in like a week, and there's a lot of stuff we need to talk about. A lot of good things, I think. First of all, we'll be doing this Independence Day campaign right away this morning because I am super intrigued about what is all to do with this. I've been hearing a lot of people say it's a lot of fun. The last campaign is another puzzle thing, so I think that's awesome. I love these puzzle things. So let's just talk about it, right? Let's just talk. The campaign contains 3 major bosses, starting off with Liberty Blossom. Miss Blossom will be playing lots of buffs to keep her in high spirits. Next off is Uncle Vandal. You will want to watch out for his combos as he just wants to get the party started. And finally, you get to play as Talia Fireborn. Try and keep the party going by setting the best firework display Tantos has ever seen. It could be fun. Seems interesting. I wonder, trying to think. The firework obviously is a puzzle. I wonder what the other two are, just combating them or whatever. For each boss you beat, you will receive an exclusive new Independence chest. Each chest contains an amazing 3 rewards with a chance of exclusive rewards, which include alternate hero art cards, playmats and card backs, and 10 avatars. Interesting. There will additionally be an Independence Day bundle, which I've already purchased pre this. I went in and I bought that 10 chests right away to make sure I have it. The campaign will be active from until the 20th of July, so it looks like we got it. I used Crossfire Thunder for the first 2 missions. I'm not surprised, Wrangler. I am not surprised. Good luck, Lightseekers, from here, from wherever you are. We wish you the great weekend and hope you enjoy your Independence campaign. From the Play Fusion campaign. Play Fusion team. Wow. I missed all those words. So that's awesome. We'll be jumping into that today. But I think what everyone is here to talk about are these battle packs, right? These battle packs. Oh my word! We heard about this coming Monday. We'll be getting 12 new cards, 4 from each of the 3 alignments. You've heard news and you've seen the preview. Now you must be wondering, what exactly is a battle pack? Wonder no longer. We're here to tell you all about our upcoming battle pack release this Monday, the 8th of July. On Monday, we'll be releasing 3 new battle packs, 1 for Astral, 1 for Storm, and 1 for Tech. Don't worry, Mountain, Nature, and Dread will get their battle packs at the end of the month, and we'll be sharing what they contain very soon. But right now, we can tell you more about what we'll be getting into the few days' time. Each battle pack is guaranteed to contain the following: 1 new hero, 3 copies of 3 new action cards, 1 Uprising booster pack, and 2 Kindred booster packs. Each pack will cost 500 gems and are great ways to augment your existing decks with guaranteed new and powerful cards. And we can show you those cards. So, I want to ask your guys' opinion. Obviously, this morning, everyone's a little sleepy. I had a bowl of cereal this morning, so I'm feeling pretty perky. How are we excited about these cards? We've been looking at these cards for the past 2 days. Are we getting pumped for them? Are we like super excited for them? Because I have mixed feelings on the cards. I do. I like them a lot, but I don't think they're going to change the game at all until, and I cannot stress this enough, until we get a rotation. Because some of these cards are nice. I love the fact that they're doing very niche things. I love the fact that they're starting to get a lot more complicated in how they interact, which means more complicated cards means more diverse of a meta. You can actually start fine-tuning into specific decks as opposed to just, this is damage, I'm putting it in an aggro deck, that's it. They're doing specific ways they deal damage. They're really fine-tuning how these action cards are interacting with one another, but they will not beat out the base cards from Awakening and the reprints, simply because those vanilla cards are good no matter what, and if these new cards with their limitations or restrictions on how they interact, they will not be as effective until we get a rotation of those cards rotated out to be able to use these specific ones in their place. with that being said, let's talk about them. Now, I can't open them up because they don't have the image files. They're just like, they're just here. So if you guys can't see, I do apologize, but I'll read them to you. We got Tailweaver Cassini. I'm really happy they're bringing back, Cassini, Sora, and then a new just giant robot. There's clearly a small guy in there. So this is like a Pacific Rim type of deal. It's pretty awesome. What Tailweaver Cassini is, ability to discard one action card to move a card from the same family from your deck to your hand and heal for 1. Now this is awesome, because if you guys didn't know, last time Cassini, I believe, was just the discard a card to deal 3 damage. I think that's what Cassini was last time around. Wranglethor says, I think the new cards have their place and are neat for specific things. I have a couple decks I want to put a couple of these into, but that's about it. Exactly. I mean, they give you clear ideas of how to use them in decks, but nothing is leaving for them to replace anything. So they really can't change the meta because nothing is leaving. And these cards are not better than the cards we have. They're just more interesting in interactive ways. But they're not really better than the cards we're getting. But yeah, Cassini, I like Cassini's interaction. I really do. I think it's a really cool way to go with the discard mechanic, search for a specific family, really like fine-tuning how these cards are working. Makes you want to be like, hey, this isn't just discard a random card to do something, right? So I think this card is going to be really fun. I don't think this card is going to be impactful in the game at all because Selene is still a thing. Selene just says discard a card, draw 2 cards. Also, Tailweaver Cassini is Lunar, and for Lunar, I want to say Alara is now the best Lunar one, just because she can rotate combo buffs and whatnot. Yes, I did see that. Actually, if I can find that comment, I want to read it because that was a very, very well read comment very well typed comment by Benny, of why these cards are released and why they're doing it this way, and I am super happy about that. First of all, not only that Benny responded to a great question that the community had about it, but his and the entire Play Fusion's explanation as to why they did it. Here we go. Maybe. There we go. So the question released by Dragon PKE up here was, I'm not sure where to put this, but I figured this channel would be a great fallback. I just wanted to ask a few questions. What made you guys decide to release these battle packs? Do you feel there's a balance issue that you're trying to fix with these releases? If that is the case, what are the balance problems? Why are these cards a part of set 5 and not 4? Maybe even a 4.5 kind of thing. Is this going to how you release sets from here on out? Are these battle packs going to see physical release? A lot of really good questions. Those are amazing questions to ask about this. And what Benny replied to is pretty much just the longer version of the cards in question have always been a part of Wave 5. However, as you may have seen over the past couple of months, we've gone to a lot of effort to simply try to get updates out at a quicker pace. That's awesome because I mean, PlayFusion has been getting these updates out. They have been listening to the feedback. They've been doing some card changes. They've been trying to get Wave 5 going and whatnot. They've really been putting their wheels to the grindstone. So it's really good to see they're still listening to us, and they're still trying to help us as best as they can with their hands being tied around red tape and all that whatnot. Where was I? Wow. There we go. One of the more exciting updates is obviously new cards, and something the digital side of us things allows us to do, but we've never dared to truly fully embrace, is to not always release cards in a massive batches. This is really cool. They're giving us little teaser cards, and it's really nice because a lot of digital card games out there have been giving us little teaser cards like, hey, here's a few brand new cards, see what they are, and then they'll give us a huge batch of cards. So we figured we'd give it a try and see how it goes down. These cards were designed way before Uprising was even released, so they are not necessarily there to try and solve any perceived balance issues, which is good. They shouldn't be. Cards like this should be kind of a teaser to Wave 5. They're not really balance issue cards. The balance issue cards should be, in my opinion, made to almost come out in the bulk set. They should be made to come out in a bulk set, because if there is balancing issues, the new set should help revitalize the meta and come out with new decks to make it so those balance issues aren't really a problem. When we decided to try this, We went through the cards of Wave 5 to see if there were any good candidates for cards we could release early. They had to meet a few criteria, which is important because, you can't, obviously he says you can't release new mechanics yet because they want that to be a big surprise. They want the cards to work with the current card pool and not rely on the new cards to have an interaction with them, so that'd be really weird. But wow, this card does like something when you, I don't know, have a combo do a certain thing, and it's like, well, none of the combos do that yet, so what's the deal with this card? The cards have to work without the backup of other Wave 5 interactions. They should support fun, new interactions that also work well with the already existing cards and lend themselves to some new deck ideas, which I think these cards do. I think these cards lend to a lot of really fun and cool deck ideas that we have been experimenting with, but just haven't really pushed themselves to the next limit. So I'm crossing my fingers that these cards will help do that. These cards will help kind of push the interactions of some of these decks that we've been trying to make to the next level and make them at least a little more competitive. The reason they are Wave 5 cards is because they've simply been lifted out of Wave 5, and we want them to still belong to that block of cards, some of which will become more obvious when you see the rest of the cards. Will we keep doing this in the future? Maybe. We'll see how it goes. So I think that's awesome. I think that's awesome that they're doing this with these cards from Wave 5 to really not only give us a sneak peek as to kind of the direction that Wave 5 is going, but the more quality of cards that we're receiving compared to stuff in the past. And that is awesome because, as you can see, like every one of these action cards has almost a paragraph of text. And I will say this, like to the bottom of my heart, I love cards with more text because that means they do more things. They have a lot more fulfilling interactions, and you really have to think about how to deck design. Before, we've had cards like Astral Priest. Just, hey, 6 damage if it's, like solar on top. Hey, here's Chimchu Militant. 5 damage. Like, there was very vanilla cards, which was fine for when the game came out. That was fine. They really needed to get their base numbers. They needed to get the interactions. Like, hey, this is just an attack card. It does this. Really simple vanilla interactions. The game has been progressing leaps and bounds since Awakening came out. And that is awesome to see. They're finally being very fine-tuned in their interactions. They're really concerning how these cards need to interact with each other properly to have very different deck ideas within the same alignments. And that's awesome. That is awesome to see. However, and I said this before, however, I don't think these cards will be as impactful until we get a set rotation. Because with those vanilla cards still being here, with those cards still being in the game itself, I don't think these cards will be replacing anything that we already have access to. You have to have both, in my opinion. Some vanilla type cards and some with lots of text and others in between. No, that's true. You do need some vanilla cards. It's just the vanilla cards, in my opinion, the vanilla cards should have their power level a little bit decreased to these ones that have really specific interactions, because the vanilla cards should not get you almost the same quality over cards that you have to build up and plan around to. A good example of this, a great example of this, is this Rebel Nest Skirmisher. Okay, it is a Chimchu Solar card. Same as Chimchu Militant. 3 damage. When you draw this card, you may reveal it to deal 2 damage to your target. Now, I love this card design. I love this card design because it really goes in with Astral's whole drawing mechanic, really cycle things back into your deck and stuff like that. But the thing is, it works better in specific ways, where obviously this card is good to draw, right? It's good to draw. You get 2 damage out of it. You can get more damage out of this one card if you just put it back into your deck and draw it again with combos and whatnot. But at the end of the day, it's 5 damage on a card from 2 sources. So yes, you can increase it from Starhorn Tusker. You can increase it from other things to get really an impact on the amount of damage that it does, because it's doing it twice. So it can be increased twice. But there's also drawbacks to it. If you draw this card and your opponent has a defense up, it doesn't do the 2 damage, and then it's just a 3 damage card if you can't put it back in. They're both Chimchu cards. And the thing that I've been seeing right now, and I've been commenting on this from our attack action cards and everything like that, is the simple fact that it is, not necessarily in a bad way, it is uninteractive to play attack cards with your opponent, because your opponent can't really predict or do anything around your attacks. This is one thing where it gets revealed, does 2 damage, and your opponent now knows what's in your hand at least, right? Your opponent's like, oh, he's got a 3 damage card in his hand. He's got a Chimchu. It's a solar. I know information about my opponent's hand. With a Chimchu Militant, it's just, hey, here's 5 damage straight out the bat. Same amount of damage, everything. But your opponent can't play around that one. They don't know anything about it. They don't know what's in your hand unless you like search for a Chimchu or whatnot. I honestly don't think that Rebel Nest Skirmisher is going to replace Chimchu Militant. Because right now, aggro, the way it is you want consistency and you want control over your damage output. You don't want to rely on drawing it. You don't want that RNG factor if you can avoid it. Because Astral Aggro relies simply on just drawing your damage cards and playing your damage cards. That's it. You with Cassini. Hey, how's it going, Shibes? Good morning. And that Rebel Nest Skirmisher relies on you to draw it to get half of its damage and then playing it to get the other half. So what I'm seeing here is until a lot of cards from Awakening get rotated out, I don't see this card being better than a Chimchu Militant. I want it to be. I think it is a very good replacement and a very good almost upgrade in gameplay. It's an upgrade in game mechanics and everything about it. But for its damage output, its ability, it is not better than Chimchu Militant. It's not. Because your opponent can, like, oh, you take 2 damage, and if you're out of actions, they can put down a defense. And after they put down defense, it's like, okay, well, I know you have a damage card in hand. I can try to defend before I die. Chimchu Militant, you can't. It's just 5 damage. And you're like, oh, well, I'm dead now. Tailweaver Cassini. Discard 1 action card, search for a specific card, and heal for 1. Now, yes, specific card draw is amazing. I love that fact. But with Cassini being double solar, the aggressive, this card is not better than Selene. It's just not. You can discard a random card or a combo or whatever you have to do to then draw 2 attack cards and just kill them. Just kill them. Selene is also solar, which is better. The only thing this has above it is the card you discard goes on top, which is better for Astral. Having the top card of your discard pile be something specific that you want is great. But a lot of times, if you're just playing Astral Aggro, the top card only matters for a few certain cards, and it's really easy to pull that off. And you're really just looking for your combos, like Planetary Alignment, Gravity Bubble, all that stuff. So, like, the card you're discarding is just searching for combos. It's not that difficult to do. So, Tailweaver Cassini. Love the interactions, love the type, love everything about it, but it's not gonna beat out Selene, because Selene's just better. Selene's just, you get 2 cards for 1, and an aggro, more card efficiency is just better than specific card efficiency. And right now, outside of Selene aggro, there's been like a Sky Slayer Vandal that's been doing okay, but honestly, it's Selene or nothing. She's the number 1 hero, and this card doesn't replace Selene at all. So that's why I'm saying, like, a lot of these cards, we need a set rotation to clear out some of these cards in order for these new ones to really have an impact on the game. In order for these new ones to thrive and show what the game could evolve into, and we can replace some of these meta decks. Crescent Fault Imitator is a creeble card. Draw 1 card face up. If it shares an element with the last discarded card, deal 2 damage to target and gain 1 additional action. Otherwise, take 2 damage. I mean, it's cool. I like it a lot. I really do. Is it better than Gravity Snail or Anti-Gravity Snail? You get an additional action. 2 damage over 4 damage. Astral's been doing fine with just 2 actions a turn, maybe 3 every once in a while. It's just like, it's these kind of cards. It's these kind of cards that you're like, yeah, I love the interaction. I love that it's Creeble. I love that it's a defend that you draw a card on. You get 2 damage and whatnot. Otherwise, you take 2 damage. There's that drawback that really I need to find out what's going on in my deck. It is a defend card. Yes, Wrangler. But does it replace... Is it better than something we already have? And the answer is no. The answer is really no. It doesn't replace anything that makes me go, oh, I would run this over, Anti-Gravity Snail. I would run this over the Chimchu one that's draw a card, heal for 2, deal 1 damage. Like, I don't care about the additional action that much. I care more about the card draw. It's really awesome that it fits into the Kriebel family. But we haven't really seen a Kriebel family deck rise to the top in Astral, and I don't think this card is going to be like, yes, this is the Kriebel card that makes Kriebel really good. Celestian Priest, thank you, it's Cecilia. It's just the Imitator, it's awesome. It's awesome. I really like it. But is it better than a previous card that we've had? And the answer is really no. The answer is no. The only card in here that I'm actually really excited about is this Moondrifter. Yeah, I love the art. I love the art. He's just in a giant chicken suit. It's awesome. The art just progressively just keeps getting better. It's awesome. But yeah, the Moondrifter is probably the only Astro card that in my opinion, I'm really excited to get my hands on. Mostly because it's the card that it's comparable to is the is the Chimchu one that we got. Kindred. Prevent 4, then heal for 2. It is lunar. This one's an elemental, so different families. But they do the same first corner. But corner 2 is you look at the top 3 cards of your target's deck and you get to discard one of them. That's awesome, because that really fits into a more control style than just like a defensive heal style. And it's an element, so it fits into a different family style. If you don't want to play Chimchus, you can play elements, which elements are really strong in Astral as well. But this card, like the Onyx deck I've been playing, this card would love to go in Onyx. It would love it so much. It's another discard mechanic for the mill archetype that we've been getting to the top. And that one has been a very new archetype, very fresh. So getting new cards for that archetype that we've been seeing since Wave 4 came out, Wave 5 really helps push this new archetype. These other ones, I mean, they're good in aggro, but aggro's already an established thing, and if we're not losing cards to that aggro deck, these cards need to be better or improve it. And these cards really just don't improve upon what Awakening has already done to them. So, yes, I'm excited for the new Astral set. I am. But I don't think it will be as impactful until we get a set rotation or until we get some of these cards to leave for these cards to really have a place to fit in. Which, like I said, Rebel Nest Skirmisher, I'd rather just run Militant. It's 5 damage that your opponent knows nothing about. More efficient. You can control the entire 5 to make sure that it hits, as opposed to drawing it for half of it and then being able to lay it without your opponent laying down a defensive or healing or whatnot. So I think in the long term, and I'll say this probably many times, these cards are great for the future of the game. These cards are great for the step forward, the development of the game that we're seeing, and it's awesome to see that. Right now, these cards will not have as huge of an impact as I'm sure they're hoping for. Yes, the people will get a hold of them and they will try new deck ideas, but I do not think the new deck ideas from these cards specifically will change the meta at all from High Curator Arwen Cages, from Selene Aggro, from the decks that we've been seeing currently. Because there's nothing leaving, and those decks are already so refined and well played out that these cards aren't like, oh, this is really going to stop at this. I think this deck will be a lot better now. Which is kind of sad. I really want to see a set rotation for these new cards to find their place and really shine. On to Storm. We have the Counselor Sora. It looks like she got a brand new hairdo. She looks pretty good. When one of your air buffs expires, you may rotate one of your action buffs 1 step forward. This is awesome. A hero finally relying like, hey, you want a board of buffs. You want these air buffs to go. We had the Mari buff that was whenever your air buffs expired, deal 2 damage or whatever, which was awesome because it was a fun air buff like expiration type of thing. Cecilia have some idea for it? That's awesome. That is awesome, Cecilia. I want to see these decks. I mean, I have some ideas for decks too. I do. It's just like I'm sitting here thinking about how the ranked meta is going to change, and it's really not. They're going to be fun deck ideas. Soaring Scout, thank you, Rocket Star. There's going to be fun deck ideas. I'm not saying that. A lot of these decks are going to come out, but the meta is not going to change. None of these cards are going to make the meta change or beat out current decks that are already so refined because of the Awakening cards. Like, no cards are leaving to change the meta. We're just getting new cards, which means these cards have to then increase the potential power of new decks to usurp the decks that are already being good. And I just don't see that happening. But I love these cards. Like I said, I love these cards. I think they're going in the good direction with the future cards. But in order for them to have an impact on the game that we want, just commenting because I'm waking up. You wake up at your own pace. That's fine. I woke up like an hour ago, so we're completely fine. But yeah, I want these cards to impact the game. But in order to do that, we need to have a set rotation already. We need to have them stop like reprinting these cards and instead make new cards. Because if they legitimately, I will say this, I'll keep going back to this Rebel Nest Skirmisher because it's so comparable to Chim Chu Militant. If they didn't reprint all of these cards from Awakening and kept them going, but instead made new cards that act similar but have different interactions, then I think that's how the game changes. That's how the game changes. If you don't reprint these cards, but instead know they're rotating out, and make a new card with a similar interaction, but it works differently or it has a specific niche to it, a more refined way, that's how you change the meta. Because cards such as the Turtle Captain that left, we got Mari Stormguard, they're very similar in how they interact. They're very similar. They prevent the first damage of a turn. One rotates if your opponent has no buffs and it's just gone. This one rotates as your opponent starts laying buffs. They're very comparable in how they work. But one left and this one took its place in a different way. That's what I want to see from this game, is cards leave for these new cards with different interactions but similar power levels to come in and really shine and really shake things up. Oh no, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. But exactly, it'll work in a more specific deck, right? The Rebel Nest Skirmisher will work in a very specific deck. It'll work in a Chim Chu deck where you're constantly drawing. You can put a Starhorn Tusker out. You can put a Observatory out and get it increased twice. Like it'll work in a different way. But until Chim Chu Militant leaves, in my opinion, just for the more efficient way, I would rather just have a Militant that does 5 damage straight out, where my opponent has no idea it's coming to get the full impact of the card, rather than draw this one, have them know that it's in my hand to deal 2, and then not be able to lay it, and have them put down a defense and be like, okay, well now I gotta wait, because they know I have a 3 attack card to finish off the 5 damage. It's one of those feelings, like, in my opinion, it's supposed to be the replacement for Militant. It's very similar interactions, it's 5 damage on face value, but until Militant leaves, Astral Aggro, I don't think Aggro has any reason to run this over Militant. I really don't. Chim Chu decks, yeah, you can replace it because they're doing a refined niche thing. But I haven't seen a Chim Chu deck compete with Selene Aggro in the way that the efficiency for just the attack damage works. I've seen awesome Chim Chu decks. I've seen your Chim Chu deck work in action. It is amazing. But compared to Selene Aggro, I don't think it's at that power level. Onto the Giddy Gas Bag. This one I think is amazing. I think it's amazing. You get 1 healing, which in some cases is just like, it's negligible. 1 healing, it doesn't matter. You really use it for you may rotate one of your combo buffs 1 step backwards. Now this one has major impact on the game. It really goes for the huge OTK stuff. I've already been hearing people say, I want this in a Clock Smasher Crud deck to work with Nuke or the other 17 damage one. I've been hearing people say, wow, you can just splash this in with Treetop Tribunal. Because guess what? Treetop Tribunal, a non-removable combo buff for 16 damage. That's nuts. That's nuts. Vine Lash is still in the game, as far as I'm aware. Wait, is it? Did Vine Lash leave? I haven't seen people run Vine Lash a whole lot. Did it leave? I'm not sure if it did. I don't think it did. I don't think Vine Lash left. It's still here. Yeah, so Vine Lash, hit for 14, turn it back 1. So, like, this card is really good. This card is really good. It's the simple thing, like, you think about Storm, right? You think about Storm. Storm itself, we haven't seen a lot of Storm combos rise to the top. Biting Blizzard is amazing. Oh my word, that combo is insane. But outside of that, people are running attack and defend Storm combos. They're running Storm Strike. They're running the lightning one, the 7 damage, increase it to 11 if the top one's a combo. They've been running the water. I'm really bad with the names this morning. I do apologize. The double water one for its 5 damage, like 2 healing, draw 2 cards, stuff like that. Chain lightning. Thank you. They're running the attack and defend combos over the combo buffs. I think the only combo buff I've really still seen play is the Storm Wall, and just for the simple fact that your opponent can't attack you for those 3 turns. That everyone's been looking at Giddy Gas Bag outside of Storm. They've been looking for it outside of Storm. Water Spout. Thank you, Rocket Star. And that's really weird to me. That they're looking at this card and immediately going, oh, I can't wait to run this in Tech. I can't wait to run this in Nature. And I'm like, but it's a Storm card. Are you guys really not excited to run this in Storm, where it's like meant for combo interactions? And the real answer is no, because all the combos we want to run in Storm are the attack and defend ones, just like Astral. Astral has amazing attack and defend combos that are just more efficient, where your opponent can't really play around them or interact with them because they have immediate impact on the board. And that's what I'm saying. That these cards look awesome. These cards with the interactions, we get so many ideas running in our head. But until we get that set rotation, until some of these cards rotate out, and it really makes us want to play some different cards, they're not going to have that much impact on the game. Outside of, hey, I wonder if this new deck will work. And then you'll run into Hiker at Darwin, you'll run into Selene, and you'll be like, it'll work. Just not at a competitive level right now because these cards are still in the game. But yeah, Giddy Gas Bag, this is awesome. It only works on combo buffs. So if you're going to run it, you're going to have combo buffs in your deck. But it also feels really bad when your combo buff gets removed and you're like, okay, well, that was detrimental because my combo buff is what I built my entire deck around. And if my one combo buff just gets removed and shut down, a lot of these cards in my hand are dead. So I got to wait to either bring that combo buff back or whatnot. And it's just not efficient. It's just not efficient to run things solely around a combo buff when all your opponent has to do is just remove that combo buff and half your deck is like, well, I need that combo buff back. But I love Giddy Gas Bag. I love it. It's amazing. I cannot wait to see what people come up with. I can't wait to see what I can get a hold of it. But you really want consistency in this game. And the vanilla cards are the most consistent from Awakening. And we need a set rotation. We really do. In my opinion, we need a set rotation. And we need to stop having reprints and instead make new cards to replace them. We need to make new cards. That's what we need. We need no reprints. We need new cards replacements, not reprints. That will be what we need. And I think they're going in the right direction with some of these replacements. Hulking Charge Claw. 3 damage to your target. If this buff is removed by another hero, the hero moves 1 card to their hand to their deck. That's cool. I like it. I really like it. It's 6 damage total, 3 impactful, then you wait a few turns to do another 3. Is it going to be better than some of the other cards that we've already had? Beasts, we haven't seen a whole lot of stuff for Beasts in the meta right now for Storm. Obviously, we've seen some. So there's some good Beasts. I think Elements is where they're really shining with their Spark Wisp and their Dust Fiend and all their... Because, I mean, those are the attack cards, right? They're the non-buff cards. Beasts are more buff-oriented. They have a lot of Beast buffs that they like to do. Hulking Charge Claw. I like it. I don't think it's going to be as impactful as we're all hoping it'll be. It does 1 less damage than Spark Wisp. Like I said, I'm solely comparing all these right now to the Awakening action cards because we still have those. And I really want those to rotate out for these cards to shine. I'm trying to think of another kind of buff that does 6 damage total in Storm. My word, I'd have to go to the card database. Let's just go to the card database real quick, shall we? Shall we just look at some of these? In Storm. So we have... Crackling Beast is a pretty good comparison. Obviously, it's 3 damage. You can increase it by 3. That was more impactful. It got rotated out somewhat. You have Dancing Flutterer, 6 damage over 20. Otherwise, yeah, there's not a whole lot of actually... Oh, I guess Lightning Bringer. Lightning Bringer was one they had to have no buffs. That was 10. Living Cloud is still an amazing card to run. Mantix Volter is potentially 6 damage over the course of 3 turns. It does take an ability to use. So, I mean, it does fit into a really nice niche. It's a beast card. It does 6 damage total. If your opponent wants to remove it, they got to have a drawback, which I think is, once again, a great way to go with some of these buffs, is to have it so that if your opponent removes them, there is a slight drawback. Because right now, I will say another huge thing in the game that, at least in my opinion, needs to change or gets reworked, is how buff removal works. With them literally just having 3 cards in a deck that half of the game is remove 2 buffs of any kind just for 1 card, that is huge. And I know for a fact that the staff over at Play Fusion has said that right now in the state of the game, if they could go back and change a thing, it would definitely be buff removal. Buff removal it's so vanilla, it's so potently strong that it's, because of the way it interacts in the game, it literally enforces a buffless aggro archetype to be good. Because running buffs, getting that drawback of having 2 of them get removed at a time is detrimental. It's so hard to come back from that when you're trying to play on a board and your opponent just goes, no, remove 2. But getting buffs like this, at least, is a step in the right direction until we get buff removal reworked and fixed, and those cards rotate out. But they've been reprinted so many times, it's not going to be for a long time. That Hulking Charge Claw, I think is good. I think it's okay. I think maybe Beasts could do something. I don't know. But it's still a buff that takes 4 corners to get off, which is a little while to do the full 6 damage. Your opponent can interact with it. To me, at least, I'm not that excited for it. I'm like, oh, cool, Hulking Charge Claw. The art's amazing. It's a beast. It's a buff. It's lightning. 6 damage, 3 and 3, impactful right when you lay it, which is really good sign for a buff these days. And then over 4 turns, it does another 3. I don't know. Is it good? Is your opponent moving 1 card back from their hand good? There's already cards in Storm that make your opponent move cards back from their hand to their deck that you get to choose. I don't know. If your opponent has no cards in their hand and they can plan around it, then that's the no drawback. And your opponent has to work around that, which is fine. That's fine. Your opponent has to dump their hand. I don't see it being extremely impactful until a set rotation, when this card has a place to go. Chances are you're sitting on at least 1 dead card at any given time. Exactly. There's 1 dead card that, like, well, I can't use this. I'll use it for combo payment or something like that. That's fine. I mean, if you're sitting at pretty high health, like early in the game, you slam this thing down, your opponent's like, well, I don't need a healing card right now. I'll put that back in the deck. That's fine. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, if it was removed and your opponent, like if my opponent removes it, I get to choose a card and they put it back. The power level might be a little too nuts. But if it was like you get to move 1 action card, so they couldn't move a combo, then in my opinion, also action cards should only interact with other action cards unless specifically They only interact with combo cards. There should not be any more of the move one card. And Blinding Beetle is a great example of that. Blinding Beetle should say attack action cards, not combos. It should not say that. It shouldn't just say attack cards, because that's ridiculous. That power level is insane. But yeah, it's just one of those things. It's like, it's nice. Waiting 4 turns for the full impact of a card when you could just be playing a Spark Wisp to deal 5 instantly. It's 1 less damage, but it's instantaneous. It's not a huge upgrade to anything we have until some of these cards rotate out. And I want to see a set rotation, because I do think only a set rotation will improve this game to the point where people are going to think of new deck ideas, really limit themselves to what they're doing. Because, I mean, Legacy left. Or we have Legacy now, where a lot of the broken cards left. But a lot of the decks still remain, because half of the Awakening cards rotate what sets. I would be fine with obviously rotating the entirety of Awakening. And maybe when set 5 comes out, even rotating out Mythical. Only having Kindred, Uprising, and Wave 5. I would actually be okay with that. To see how much that shakes the game up. We would still obviously have a lot of the Awakening reprints in Kindred. We would still have a lot of those. But, like, Selene would go. High Curator Arwen would go. Like, a lot of these really good heroes. Yeah, but due to reprints rotating out all of Awakening. Exactly. That's the thing. And that's what I said during the thought. We need to stop having reprints and start having just reinventions of cards. We need to stop having Chimchu Militants consistently coming back and have new cards like Rebel Nest Skirmisher to replace it. We need to stop having reprints and start having replacements. That's what will make this game fresh and new and make it stop feeling like the same 3 decks are the same best decks to play, because none of the cards are leaving. So we need to start having reprints and we need to start having replacements and not reprints. And if we do that, if we rotate out what's left of Awakening, obviously the reprints will stay because they were reprinted in Kindred, and when we take out Mythical, and we're left with Kindred, Awakening, and Wave 5. In my opinion, when Kindred came out, they really started to fine-tune. That's when the family aspect started coming in. They started to fine-tune a lot of these like complex interaction action cards that I believe once Mythical leaves and the rest of Awakening leaves that wasn't reprinted, that's when we'll start seeing a huge shift in the meta. And a lot of people will start playing and trying to find out new ways to do this stuff. That's just my opinion, though. That's my opinion. That the game needs more replacement cards and not reprints. Because once they do that, too, they won't have to do that many erratas. They won't have to consistently keep errata-ing all of these cards to interact with them, because the cards will leave, and they'll make newer, different cards to fix it. That's it. Sparkback Splasher is actually a card I'm actually excited for, because it works on an archetype that we haven't really seen come to fruition. We've tried it, but it's a Creeble water buff that works with other water buffs. They're still pushing the water buff idea, and that's amazing. Water buffs adjacent to this one can't be removed or returned by other heroes, and that was a huge thing, right? Because if you went wide on water buffs, your opponent could just remove 2 of them, and you're like, oh man, I needed like 4 of these water buffs out. How am I going to possibly do that? And it's a Creeble card, which is awesome because the water buffs are starting to get into the Creeble family. We have a lot of Creeble support in the water cards already. And having this be another water Creeble buff really makes me excited for this water Creeble buff deck. It's amazing. Quarter 4 is your target moves 2 cards from their hand to their deck. You just draw 1 card. It has very minor impact on the 4th corner, but the simple fact of the matter is that if your 2 buffs adjacent to it are water, your opponent can't touch them. And that is huge for buff decks, to make it so your opponent can't touch with your board. Because as I said, the way buff removal works right now is there's really no incentive to lay buffs when your opponent can consistently get a 2-for-1 swing and really throw the deck out of whack. Really throw your course of plan out of whack, and you got to draw those cards, re-get the cards back, while your opponent just keeps applying pressure with their deck. And having a card that almost protects 2 specific buffs is huge. It's huge. Think of how impactful Spectre Web was when it was just all of your buffs, right? That card was bonkers nuts. It needed an errata. It needed to be gone from the game. It was so hard to deal with. This card is a very mildly toned down version of it where it specifically only interacts with 2 buffs if they meet the requirements. And I think really tunnel visioning a lot of these action cards into that narrow fine-tuning is the best direction this game can do. Because this card should not read buffs adjacent to this can't be removed. Like, that is too strong. That is very strong. Because that means, like, any buff you put next to it is just stuck there. Now, it does say water buff. So a combo water buff, that can't be removed, right? Biting Blizzard suddenly can't be removed. There's a lot of things that you can do with this that just make it busted. And this card, honestly, is the one I'm excited for in Storm. Giddy Gas Bag, yeah, I'm excited for it. I think it'll be really fun, but not in Storm, which is sad. Like, I don't think that card has a real place in Storm. I think it has a place outside of Storm. But Sparkpack Splasher has me excited for this new archetype that they're trying to push with the water buffs. And if I get my hands on this, I'm building a water buff deck. I'm doing it right away. I cannot wait to try this card out and see what it can do. Gominator X. Attack ability, increase your attacks by 2 for the rest of the turn. It's double fire explosive. I think it'll be okay. I mean, it's a hero that you can run in a tech aggro deck, but it's not going to compete with Tempest. It's not. Tempest will always be the aggro deck, and as long as there are items that give you superiority over explosive, this card isn't going to replace anything. It's nice for, like, oh, late in the game, hey, I need this action card to deal, 2 more to get through, like, a wall or something like that to push for 2 more damage. But right now, tech aggro, the way it is, has so many just 5 damage, 6 damage that dealing an extra 2 damage in one of your action slots is not going to matter. It's not going to be as impactful. Especially with Tempest when you're just drawing cards. You're just drawing cards and outpacing your opponent. It's not going to see that much of a play. I want to say there was a mountain hero that did something very similar to this, if not the same exact thing, where it was like an attack ability, your fire cards deal 2 extra damage this turn, something like that, where you first had to trigger the ability, use one of your action slots, then do something in your second one to really prep your entire turn. And the way I look at Gominator X is the way I looked at that card. You're not going to use this ability every turn. This is an ability you're maybe going to use once or twice at the end of the game to get that final 2 damage push. Right? You're going to use it at the end of the game when you're starting to run low on resources and you really need every card to get an additional 2 to really push off your opponent. So all your cards are going to deal like upwards of 7 or 8 damage. But during the beginning of the game, you just want to keep pumping out damage. You just want to keep doing your 5, your 6, drawing those cards, getting heavy hitting in where your opponent just feels overwhelmed. And the best way to do that is with card draw. So as long as Tempest is in the game, I really don't see any hero in tech replacing an aggressive style that's better than Tempest. I love the art. I love the concept of this guy. I think he fits kind of fine-tuned into it. But once again, until some of these heroes rotate out, it just doesn't excite me. It just doesn't excite me. Especially when those decks like that can just run the turret and get superior explosive and not have to worry about it. Because the only worry you have is if you run into mountain. Think of using this with a buff deck and Epic Master. Not gonna lie, I have to go look what Epic Master does. I think I know what it does, but I just want to make sure. Rotate all of your action buffs one step forward or one of your action buffs one step backward. Oh, yeah. I mean, if this literally increased your buff damage. Oh, your attack is damage. Yeah, I mean, if there was a way. You already have a deck idea for this hero? Rockets are. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it. Is it just more of a an attack kind of aggro style deck for tech, or is it something specific? I mean, I'm intrigued as to what you're gonna do with this guy, because it's very similar to. I need to find the mountain hero that did almost the exact same thing. I need to find him. Where are you? Oh, it's like Cinder Branch in a sense. If you light a fire card, you can trigger it to deal 2 damage. I thought there was something else. I thought there was literally something that said your attacks deal 2 more. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I just lied to all of you and I apologize. But yeah, I mean, it feels like Cinder Branch, where you trigger the ability and the ability is only worth 2 damage. And then you have to do something specific with it in order for it to get its full effect. So you're not going to use it every turn. But I don't think he's going to be as impactful in the game as we're all hoping, simply because there's nothing leaving for this card to find a place to replacement. Blastfest Kreeble, 4 damage explosive. Probably thought of Axis, the healing one. Yeah, it heals you for 2. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I was like, I know there's something in there where there's an ability that just increases your attacks by 2. But yeah. And tech is not one of those orders that gets you additional actions, so there's nothing really exciting about using it to do multiple attacks in a turn. But yeah, I mean, it's cool, but nothing is leaving for there to be a major shakeup for these cards to interact. Blastfest Kreeble, I'm actually excited for. 4 damage if this card is stored under a buff, and that buff is removed by another hero. Deal 4 damage to that hero. It really fits into that whole, discard archetype. Really get the stuff onto your cards, like Shallow Grave and the not Giga Blender. Giga Blender is the discard one, the one that stores the ones in tech now to deal 7 damage. Like, we're finally getting, and it's a Kreeble card, which works really nice with the Kreeble discarding effects. We're getting really nice cards that are going to. Don't you get additional actions with Worm Tunneler? Yeah, you do. I guess there's that. And Makeshifter. Yes, Makeshifter after that's the one. Yeah, so like if you build a tech deck to get you multiple actions, then yeah, that guy's awesome. It works really well. But is that deck that relies on a really specific board state to get you additional action going to be better than a Tempest aggro? And the answer is, I don't think so. Because if it relies on specific buffs to be out there, then your opponent just waits for those buffs and removes them. And then your deck synergy doesn't flow as well as them just attacking. That's the thing. Blastfest Kreeble. I like this card. I like this card a lot. It fits into it's just 4 damage, so it's good on its own. It fits really well into the whole discard mechanic that tech is trying to do as well by discarding storing things. The simple fact of the matter is, this card isn't replacing anything, and with it being another 4 damage attack card, face value attack card, it's just going to go in tech aggro and be another 4 damage. It's going to be like Blastbot. They don't use it for the removal, they use it for the 4 damage. That until some cards rotate out, tech just has a lot of attack cards in explosive now to choose from. That the matter of fact isn't going to be like, oh, is this one better than this? It's going to be like, okay, well, how much 4, 5, or 6 damage attack cards going to have in the deck at once to just blow my opponent away? That's what it's going to be. I would have actually really liked to see this be like 2 damage attack card, but if it was stored, the damage is 4. I really, really don't, in my opinion, agree with the fact that they're the same face values. That it's just 4 damage, but hey, if you store it under a card, it's the same damage. So it can work well. I really don't like the fact that doing the specific thing the card is trying to do gives you the same potential amount of damage as the face value already does. I think that's where the conditional increase should have been applied. Where it's like, hey, this does 2 damage, but if it's stored under a buff and your opponent removes it, it does 4 damage. Meaning you get more out of it for using it in a very specific way. And the very specific way means that it fits really nice into that archetype. Otherwise, like a card that just does 4 damage, but it also does the same amount of damage when used specifically, why not just lay it for 4 damage and be aggro? That's the thing. I would have really liked to see cards like this have their conditional increases come from being able to lay them in specific ways. I would love that. Because yeah, if it's a 4 damage card, but also does 4 damage in a different way, yeah, it fits really nice into this archetype. It fits really nice into this discard archetype. But other than that, it's still just going to be 4 damage. It's still just going to do 4 damage, and a lot of people will look at this card going, okay, we got another 4 damage card for tech. We got another blast bot. Like, it's just 4 damage, and I'll run it for 4 damage. Who cares about discarding it? Who cares about trying to fit it into a really interesting and unique archetype if I can get the same value out of it just from playing it? Like, that's the thing. I really want to see these conditional increases be applied to cards like this, where their base value is lower than their use it in a specific way to get more out of the card. I think that'll be great. I could be the only one here. I could be the only one saying, no, don't do that. We need these 4 damage cards. But I think that's a great way to go about it, is to have conditional increases be reliant on, hey, like you could still run it. You can have 2 damage. You can potentially increase it. Like with Dominator X, you could run it in this card and be like, oh, this only does 2, but if I use the ability to do 4 damage, awesome. Because I don't have the discard cards for it. So I could pump it up into a normal attack card. But if I discard it, if I work my deck the way it's supposed to, I'm going to get the best value out of it. That'll make this card, in my opinion, be really well done. If attack cards like this and cards like this have their face value lowered, but their conditional value be where you get the max value out of the card. Because then cards like this turn cards where you need to get a conditional one back into the full face value. That'll be where these cards like this with the abilities really see full shine. Where this will turn cards that are like, oh, it's a dead card, and I can only get 2 damage out of it. Well, at least now I can get 4 damage out of it and make it feel like a decent card. Because otherwise it's going to be like, okay, every card I run is going to be a 6 damage card. 6, 7, or 8. Just aggro, right? It doesn't feel like anything new is changing to the game. But that's my opinion. That's my opinion on it. People can have their own. But I would love to see cards like this have conditional increases and have their face value lowered, where their conditional increase, if you play it in a proper way, really fit into that archetype, really try and almost enforce people to say, hey, this is an archetype that works really well. You don't just need to keep playing attack cards for 4 damage, 4 damage, 5 damage, 5 damage, 6 damage, 4 damage, 6. You don't have to play like that. You can actually build an archetype that we're pushing, and the archetype will work better than those vanilla attack decks because the cards work better when played a certain way. I think that'll be a great way for the game to step forward. But if cards keep reading 4 damage, but if you discard it, it's also 4 damage, people are going to look at it going, it's 4 damage. I'm just going to lay it for 4 damage. That's it. Right? That's it. The Stubborn Worker, another Creeble card. Awesome. I'm really loving. Everyone was like, you're muted, Oban! I think Counselor Sora is really cool, but I feel the same way. I'm not excited, just kind of meh. Exactly, and that's because the card pool we have right now, everything works so well. And we're like looking at these new cards going, okay. I mean, I'm still rather going to run the cards I have over this one. This card isn't replacing anything. It's just cool. But it's not as good as what we already had. Did you guys hear my Blast Fist Creeble? Did I get that in? I know I said it for like 10 minutes, so I probably did. But awesome. The Stubborn Worker, I like the Stubborn Worker. It really helps push into that self-damage archetype that they're still trying to push with a lot of their buffs. It's a Creeble card. I don't know if that's going to make much difference in the self-damaging thing. And I think it has a really nice place. Because with this card and Colossi Skybeam, or not the Colossi Cannon, you can lay this Colossi Cannon, 1 damage, rotate it forward, deal another one. Next turn, 2 damage, you get to rotate it forward, deal 11 damage. It spins that card really quick, which was a buff that was always a huge detriment to lay. Because you would lay it and you'd take 4 damage, and unless you had a Fountain of Time or something to really spin it forward, your opponent would just be like, okay, well, I remove it and I don't take 11. You took 4. Cool. And I'm just like, wow, that felt really bad. That the Stubborn Worker, I think, is a card that is needed to really help push that self-damaging archetype into the next level. Because the only cards that were beneficial were the combo buffs. And having like 3 cards out of your 35-card deck really helped push your deck to the next level. We needed action cards to help support it outside of the combo cards. Because I don't think there were a whole lot of action cards that supported you taking damage outside of like the Chrono... What was it? The Chrono Reactor, something like that? That whenever you took damage, you got to draw a card. Like, there were a lot of really fun interactions. But I do think it still needed more support. It needed more support to help your board interact. That helped your hand. It helped you draw cards and get your hand going. But the board still moved at a very slow pace. Chrono Shock Engine. Thank you, Wrangler. That you were able to keep your hand going, but the board still moved at a very slow pace. And that kind of felt bad. Where this one will help manipulate the board, which is more important to that archetype, is you want to manipulate your board so your opponent feels pressured with your board state. And if they're not feeling pressured with the board state, then the board is just dealing damage to you, and they're going to take advantage of that by going at their own pace and killing you while you're at a very constant, slow pace. So I really like Stubborn Worker. I think it's a very good card for that self-damaging archetype, and it might actually be a card that is going to make the self-damaging archetype into a more refined deck. I do think it's going to help push that archetype further. Kind of how the Sparkback Splasher is going to help the Water Buff one be pushed further. And Moondrifter, I mean, the mill archetype for Onyx is already amazing, but it's going to be a nice fit into that archetype. Ticking Keelbot. Now, this is one that I saw and was like, I'm not really that enthused by it. I'm really not. So it's 4 healing after 2 turns. That's awesome. But when this is about to be removed, deal damage to your target. So we're obviously trying to push this card into the self-removal one, right? We're trying to move this into the self-removal deck, which means stuff like the bot launcher, stuff like the demolition bot. We're trying to go into that whole destroy your robots to do things. I don't like the fact that the first corner has an X. Yeah. In all honesty, if this was just like open for open, then I think this card would be amazing for a rare. I think this card is maybe at a common level. Maybe an uncommon if you push it. But I don't think that the way the card reads is at the rare level. Simply because the first corner is an X. So you lay it down, and then your opponent can remove it and nothing happens. Right? It only works on the next corner, which is the immediate interaction. And then it has another corner which does nothing, which means that really the only incentive is for you to remove it. But I would love it if the first corner was also open. So it's like, hey, my opponent can remove this to stop me from getting 4 healing, but they take 3 damage. Then I'll get 4 healing, and then it's a buff that's only usable for me for the next 2 turns. It's got its thing, but it really needs to kind of have an impact on your opponent. And if it sits out there in the first corner and your opponent just removes it, it's one of those where, like, it didn't do anything. It didn't really do anything. I personally don't know how well or strong this whole self-buff removal archetype is going to be. I don't. I'm excited to try it out, to try putting demolition bots, to try bot launcher again. Bot launcher was just very slow for me. It was really slow. But something like this will help bot launcher actually be pushed into the next level. But it's just like, if I lay this down, and then my opponent 2-for-1's my bot launcher and my ticking heal bot, and I'm like, wow, there goes like a really good chunk of how my deck works. It's going to feel bad. I sometimes wonder if there is something we are just not seeing with some of the rare cards when we look at them and are like, huh. Yeah, exactly. Like, these are all rare cards, and they're all just like, these don't seem to be rares. A lot of these seem to be maybe uncommons. They really do. I'm excited to see what we're getting in Wave 5, to see why these are the rare ones. I really am. Like, I can see getting Gasbag being rare. It messes with combos. That's huge. Sparkback Splasher is really good for the archetype. I can see that one. This one I don't see being a rare. This I see maybe an uncommon. Rebel Nest Skirmisher I honestly see being a common. I see being a common. Of all three, I want to get my hands on Tech first, then Storm. Wranglethorn, no one is surprised you want Tech first. No one in their right mind is surprised you want Tech first. I want Storm. I stink at playing Tech. That's fine. This one I think is a common. This one I think is an uncommon. This I think is like, all of these being rare. I'm very skeptical about what Wave 5 power level is going to be. I really wonder what Wave 5 power level is going to be. Like, when we get our hands on these Monday, we're going to try some different archetypes. I'm going to get all of them. I want all of them. I think they're nice. If I had to choose which one I wanted first, I would honestly have to say Tech. Because Tech, to me, their action cards actually look like they're pushing 3 different archetypes that have not risen to the top yet. And these cards could help make those archetypes a little more viable to play. In Storm is just, hey, here's a water buff archetype, and then 2 other cards. Right? This one, the combo buff, like I said, everyone's thinking about this outside of Storm. It's not pushing anything inside of Storm that we are that curious as to, we've tried to make. Hulking Charge Claw is just, it's a buff. There's no meta for it. There's no archetype that's trying to fit in. It's just a buff. Storm, this is the mill archetype that we've all been having fun with. And these 2 are just other cards. I just don't want to have to put money on it within the app. I like buying the physical cards to scan because of the value to me. But I get that there are more app players, and they're doing this as a slow leak leading up to Wave 5. Yeah, exactly. And Cassilia, if you want, you can live vicariously through me and through other people and learn what these cards do before they come out physically. There's nothing wrong with that. I do feel as a streamer, I am almost entitled to get these cards to show them off. That is my contribution to the world. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with waiting. There's nothing, because I mean, if I buy these cards and it's like, wow, these still don't work, you're like, okay, well then, I didn't spend real money on digital cards. You're fine. And if you really don't try and like grind ranked or do anything like that, then there's no real incentive to get these unless you already have the gems. But yeah, that's my opinion on these cards. I think a lot of them are good. I don't agree with their rarity levels at all. I really don't. And I don't think they will be as impactful in the game until we get a set rotation. Until we get a lot of these cards to rotate out in the game, like up through Mythical even, I don't think these cards are going to change the game or stir things up. I think what they're looking for is like, hey, are these archetypes viable? Are these cards good? What do we think? Like, are they going to push the pre-existing archetypes into something? And the truth of the matter is, I don't think so. I don't think these cards are going to change the meta. I don't think these cards are going to be as impactful as I'm sure they're hoping for. I will definitely get them. I will definitely try to make those archetypes work with these cards. But outside of that, High Curator Arwen is still going to be the best with its cages and all of its other buff stuff that it's doing. Selene aggro is still going to be the thing. Even Tempest aggro is still going to be a thing. It's really I haven't really seen a whole lot of Mountain, Storm, or Nature really rise to the top on ladder. I haven't been on ladder like at all, so I could be completely wrong. Maybe there's other archetypes out there, but just on Discord and all the social media sites, I haven't been hearing a whole lot about those three orders. Other than nothing is working in comparison to High Curator Arwen and Selene aggro. I haven't heard anything about them. Maybe people just haven't found the niche for them, but it's because we haven't had a full set rotation. And until we do, nothing is going to shake up from what we've been seeing for the past 2 years. That's my strong opinion. That is my opinion on it. So, am I excited for the new cards? Yeah. I love the direction they're going in. I love the fact that these cards are being more specific in how they interact. I still think some of them need to change. This one doesn't need to have an X on it. This one should be 2 damage, then 4 damage, then conditional. I think Hulking Charge Claw maybe even needs to, I don't know, have 1 less corner or something like it. Or like have a huge impact on the last corner where, or like maybe 2 cards from your opponent's hand. I don't know. But this one doesn't seem as impactful as it could be. This one literally just needs Chimchu Militant to leave. This one needs Militant to leave in order for it to even have a close thing to not being just a common. This having a rare attack scares me of what Wave 5's potential is. If I'm comparing this to a common attack card and still thinking to myself, Chimchu Militant's better. In my mind, for how aggro works, Militant's going to be better than the Skirmisher. It is. I'm trying to think. Does Infiltrator draw the card or does it move it to your hand? Does Infiltrator draw the card or move it to your hand? It moves it. So it's not even you can draw this from the graveyard and it deals 2 damage. It's nothing like that. Alright, Cecilia, have a good one. Enjoy your OP. I hope you have fun at it. But I mean, if this card was like when it was moved to your hand or put into your hand from anywhere, then I think this card would be good because you could deal 3 damage. Infiltrator it back, deal 2 more damage, then 3 damage, and get that really consistent. But then again, at the end of the day, it's still 5 damage. And Militant being able to deal 5 damage over and over and over again is better than 2 sources that add up to 5. Just in my mind. Just in my mind. With that being said, guys, it moves cards to your hand. Yeah, exactly. With that being said, I'm going to take like a quick YouTube break. Let's do the 4th of July campaign. What do you say? What do you say? 1 sec.